Lasch, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to our latest Astral Nova event, an interview with my Astral micro-commission composer, Reena Esmail, whose new composition I'll be premiering live in Philadelphia on May 7th. Thank you so much, Reena, for speaking with me.
I'm so excited to be here.
So I have to ask you, what was your first reaction when I called you up? I believe it was an email first, and I said, could you please write for trombone, or would you consider writing for trombone?
Yeah, so I had two reactions. The first one is like, why would she think that I would know how to write for trombone? And is she just going to be massively disappointed when she knows that I have never written for trombone before? And the other was actually just one of deep curiosity, because of course, we had been to Yale together, and we also had met through the SNR Foundation Awards. And I remember hearing you play and thinking, I had no idea the trombone could sound like that. This is just not what I thought the trombone could do. And I thought, well, wow, she clearly has an insight into a side of the trombone that's really interesting and fascinating to me. So this is the best way for me to learn. And so I was initially just so excited to get a chance to work with you and get a chance to explore something together, because I also thought, if you were asking me, and I know that you knew my music before, I thought maybe you were hearing deeper into something than even I could hear. And I mean, that turned out to be true. I feel like you were able to hear my music and hear how it might fit in your instrument in a way that even I couldn't at that time.
Exactly. Now that I have the piece, exactly what I thought was going to happen did. And it's interesting because I was just looking at the other day and I was thinking, wow, this is both completely different than what I thought you were going to write. And spot on. I hard to articulate exactly, but the second movement in particular, when you said, because you had first given me a draft and then you were concerned about it being too long, and I said, no, I want all your ideas. I knew the second movement was going to be special. And the extra couple minutes you've added, that movement in particular is what I was thinking that this might yield.
The second movement is the movement that has the most kind of like Indian classical melody. And when I write music, my process of writing is actually just to sing through the melodies and then try to notate them on the page. So they notate a little bit weirdly, and there's often these phrase notes and these weird looking rhythms and stuff, but it all comes from some kind of vocal improvisation. And I remember I started the piece like that. Initially, the second movement was going to be the opening of the piece, but then I just thought to myself, I feel like I need something to set up this intimate space that the second movement opens with. So the first movement, feels, and the first and third movements do feel very sonata-like, in the sense that the first movement is big and, sweeping. The second movement is very kind of intimate and lyrical. And then the third movement is kind of fast and furious. And I wanted to try that form out and see how that worked in the sonata.
That kind of brings me to the next thing I was going to mention. You did such a deep dive. I don't think I've ever heard of any composer. I mean, hey, Bartok, you didn't figure out the instrument. Do such a deep dive on an instrument that you didn't already know. And everything that you wrote, I don't get the impression at all you were doing it because you saw other people doing it. It just fell so into our vernacular in so many ways. Do you deep dive other instruments like this?
It's a really good question, because I think, you go through stages as a composer, right? Where at first you're just, an undergrad in an orchestration class being like, this is the range of the trombone. And you're like, okay. And then you kind of imitate what you know. And especially for most of us who don't write directly for brass, we encounter brass in a orchestral setting. And then it's like, we're trying to manage, okay, when do we give the brass certain things? And we're not really focused on the brass in that situation. And so I've found just the further I get as a composer, the things that challenge me the most are those instruments where you don't get a chance to really do a close-up focus on them. And so, earlier this year, I wrote a piece for a harp, and it was the same kind of thing where, we can all write for the harp in an orchestral setting, but writing a solo piece for harp is like a whole other thing. And so for me, I just thought, I have the advantage of the fact that you're not only a top level performer, but you're also a teacher. And so you have to figure out how to teach people to play this instrument that to me looks like, well, it's a lot of tubing and you move your mouth and somehow notes come out. I don't know. And so I thought this is my chance to actually figure out how this instrument works. And I love that. I love having time to figure something out, but I also love having a person like you who I can just text you dumb questions and be
They
like,
were not dumb. They were
so
very
sorry. Especially my favorite one was when I was like, is there a gap in the trombone range that I just don't know? And I looked through every possible thing, and you'd be surprised, because what I find as a composer, and this is true with instruments like the trombone, but it's also true when you're working across musical cultures, that there are these things that seem so obvious to the people who play the instrument that they don't talk about them. And then those same things are completely unobvious to people who don't know. And so it's never a thing where you kind of know the right thing to Google to get that information, but it's a very basic fact. So I just love having a kind of a secret plumb line to you where I can ask you anything I want to ask. And then I can also write further into what the trombone is, because I know that I know that if I'm doing something that makes no sense, like you are quality control 101 there.
But it was really amazing, the questions you were asking. I mean, I just sometimes wish my undergrads were this curious about the instrument they're playing. But yeah, I wanted to ask, have you played one yet? Because I almost feel like we need to get you a trombone for all you know.
I know. No, I've never played, not a brass instrument, but not a wind instrument. Probably
Really?
The only time I have ever put an instrument in my mouth and blown into it is a recorder in elementary school. And so I think I'm just so intimately aware that my sensibility, like I'm trained as a pianist. I also have some training in string instruments. Like I can make my way around the violin pretty decently. So that's how I understand music in the most kind of visceral, tactile sense. And so for me, even woodwinds make some sense, because I get that, you put your finger down and it changes the length of the thing. Brass instruments, the idea of embouchure and blowing into something where you just somehow have to know what shape your face makes and how that maps onto notes. I mean, to me, it's just magical. And so, I would be so interested to try my hand at actually playing a brass instrument at some point, but I don't think I've even ever put a mouthpiece in my mouth before. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So I apologize for letting her crash the interview, but you may have noticed that she's opened a door and turned off a light while we've been speaking. So it's very clear that Fudge, my on-brand trombone cat, who was in some of the videos I sent you, to make an appearance. So we're just going to let this happen.
That's great.
But speaking of the videos, I've collaborated with a few composers. I've never had such a close, almost daily connection where you were sending me some materials, or I really appreciated when you sang, and the video you sent me the other day, like you said, it's a little hard to articulate in Western notation, like exactly what you want me to do, but then when you sing it, it's perfectly clear. So I feel like we've been combining oral skills, Suzuki, brass pedagogy, everything into our collaboration.
Yeah, for me, because I guess like I'm someone who I think just as a person, I'm a very kind of social person. I love like spending time with people, but I managed to pick the job that is the most solitary job. And so it's like, it's very weird that my whole job is just sitting alone by myself in a room writing music. And so, if you look at a lot of my output, you'll notice that even my orchestral music, I write a lot more concertos than I do straight orchestra music. And it's because I just like having a partner. And I feel like, for me, there's only so many ideas I can think of just me by myself. But the minute I get introduced to someone else and their creative practice, then it allows me to kind of build on their practice and for them to build on my practice. And even for someone like you, it's been fascinating doing a deep dive into your work, because you, like I said, you're a performer, you're a teacher. You also have a book of arias that you translated for trombone. And so it's like looking through this book has given me a lot of information into how you think of your instrument. And it's just fascinating to work with someone who plays an instrument, but also has a very specific personality in as far as what you like, the kinds of things you like to play. And I think that to me is almost the easiest thing to write into, because I have such such a multidimensional sense of who you are. And so that's really fun. And so as I was writing, I was thinking, okay, is this a thing that I think Brittany would enjoy playing? And that helped me kind of make my musical decisions.
Aw, it means a lot that this got so personal. At the same time, I love hearing, I didn't actually notice that you write more concertos now that I'm thinking about looking through your list. But then I guess it's a plus that we had so many people involved in this project, right? Because you said you've never quite had a piece come together with individuals, organizations, and a consortium all in one.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. It is. It's so wonderful to think about the fact that not only does the piece go out to you, but then there are so many other trombonists who will be playing this piece as well. Some of whom I know in other ways. Like when I was at Seattle recently, there was a trombone concerto there, that I was thinking about and working with. Then, the principal of LA Phil is also involved in this, and so it's been amazing to think about how this piece will be going out to so many trombonists, and even more interestingly, how the trombone world, I don't know how to say this, but like in worlds that are like, for instance, like with violinists and stuff, I just don't think consortiums work the same way, because it's not like the top players are all just, out doing solos and they're just in a really different position. But with trombonists, I feel like there is a community of people that all kind of know each other and are really interested in new music. And maybe it's the nature of the instrument and the fact that it's not like, oh, you just have so much music from the history of the world to choose from that you're, if you become a trombonist, you maybe are naturally more excited about what is yet to come. And so it's just a great place to write into, because when you're writing into a place where people really want that music, you can feel that energy when you're writing. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's one thing for an organization to say, hey, we have something coming up, here's a fee, write us a commission. And it's another thing to have actual people who will be interacting with your music be very excited about that prospect.
And you kind of hit it on the head, but in a very graceful way. We have a lot of repertoire, but it's sparse. Because we had some great stuff in the 18th century, a little bit in the 19th, and then a little bit of a dead period as we became a bigger orchestral instrument. And now I think we're having a bit of a renaissance as a solo instrument. And it's projects like this that are going to advance the instrument beyond the perceived, oompa kind of public persona. We're not the sousaphone or 76 trombones. We can do so much. So I really feel strongly that we all need to do more with great composers to not only have more music being written, but just like you said, build the community, have these more performances. And I picked the people in this consortium personally, as you know, because I think each one of them is really, really different and is a great artist. And so I think we're going to have 11, 12 different versions of this. I hope everyone records it, whether formally or informally, because that'd be so cool. I think this piece, there's not going to be one way, especially the second movement. It's going to be beautiful to hear how my colleagues interpret it.
Yeah. And that's also a great thing for a composer, because a lot of times when you're writing something for just one person, even if that person is like a completely amazing soloist, you're hearing the piece as just what they're playing. But the minute many people start to play the piece, you start to see the breadth in choices that people make, because any good musician is going to make a certain choice and kind of go in that direction. And if everyone makes different choices, you can see the potential in your own ideas in a way that you can't if it's only just one person making a choice, however amazing that choice might be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I am so excited to have you come to the premiere on May 7th, and I hope you're willing to speak a little bit about some of the things you just said, or whatever you'd like to share. I know the audience would love that. It's it almost feels historical, like there's this big piece being performed by this big composer, and she's going to be there to speak on it, so I'm super excited.
Oh, I'm really excited too. I'm excited to hear it live. And especially, like I said, I've never heard like solo brass music that I've written be performed live. Is that true? Maybe a trumpet piece once a long time ago, but yeah, certainly never. I'm so excited to hear how just, the recordings we sent back and forth, and just whatever is in my mind lines up with what the actual live performance of this piece will be. It'll be super exciting.
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you there.
Me too.
Say bye, Fudge.
Bye, Fudge.